Hello, hi, Tom. Hi, how are you?
Very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming up second time on our podcast. I think it's been a year
Yes, just slightly under a year.
and at the year. So just for our audience, Tom is Canadian and he's based in Doha, Qatar. And we would love to talk about our topic is like the evolution of data professional. It's a great topic. It's a hot topic. Everybody is confused. Everybody want to do AI, but nobody knows correctly that how AI is proving, how AI is being implemented, how to use it. MIT says 98% project failed. Agentic AI will be 40% will be failed in 2027. So there are survey says big failures and practices says everyone use AI and how
Hmm.
which has impacted data professionals. So a quick one, Tom, just give few lines for yourself about yourself for our audience, and let's jump onto this topic. I love this topic which you just proposed.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Tom Wilson. I'm as we said, I'm from Canada, and I've been dealing with data warehousing, business intelligence, and all things data basically for over 25 years now. And so I am currently in uh, Doha, Qatar. And so pleasure to be here today and pleasure to very passionate about the topic as Mustafa is as well. So thank you very much for having me.
No, no, it's pleasure. It's always pleasure to have people from data background. As you mentioned, you have been in data warehousing for last 25 years. And in this discussion, we will discuss how the implementation, execution, execution portion of this whole journey has changed. We used to write SQL commands, actually .SQL scripts we used to write. Then we jumped into ETL tools. Then you jump into semantic layer in the BI layer. Then we jump into
Mhm.
big data. All those journeys and how AI impacting that. So, so, so my obvious question to you, right? Because you have been in Doha away from your own country, and I'm sure you have been involved into many places. And since last 2 years, this AI has really jumped into it. Last time it was a buzzword as a product,
Mhm.
how to
Right.
use it
Hmm.
for end product. Now suddenly it has shifted its table from the other side to the this side towards developers, towards professionals.
Exactly.
So let's
Right.
hear you out how and why you wanted to discuss this topic.
Yep. So thank you. So one of the things is that um, when we talk about the data professional itself, I think that sort of where I come from with it is that when looking at job postings online for any data professionals, and there's a lot of people out there looking right now, and so you see a lot of job postings for uh, whatever data roles, whatever data, there's always going to be AI with it. It's almost as though it is it is something that is being combined, and it reminds me going back to, if you look over time, there have been a lot of instances where like over time technology changes and it adapts, and I think that talk about adoption cycles. So if you let's go back 30 years ago, okay, or 35 years, sorry, probably 40, 35, 40 years ago,
Hmm.
when people who designed programs and people who actually coded them were separate.
Hmm.
Okay. And what I'm talking about is there was the actual program designers who wrote the logic, and then there were the people that actually coded the printer, like the programming punch cards,
Yeah.
right, for COBOL. And this is before our time, but when I started, these were people. The my I was at the bottom. The people who were in the middle and the top, they were used to punch cards. They started with COBOL programming or learning, or sorry, machine language programming using punch cards,
Hmm.
right? So, but as programming languages became, and computers advanced, you didn't need a separate, program logic person and a person who actually punched the cards,
Hmm.
right? They were the same job. Or I think a better one is how, for example, you have full stack engineers, right? So before, or full stack developers. So you for websites, for example. So you used to have a designer, you used to have a separate web developer, and then you like front end. Then you used to have a back end,
Hmm.
right? And now they talk about a full stack, right? So it's definitely the front end HTML, JavaScript, CSS, also the back end side as well, and a lot of the web pieces are also asking for web design skills as well. So we don't have the budget for a web designer. So you
Hmm.
see this sort of like confluence of other roles that as they become simplified and the technology matures, and there's more people who know this technology, I think what they say is that, well, the market's not good. I can ask for and this, and I'll get it because I know that someone who's a back end person will learn the front end, and that'll give them an advantage, and I'll hire them. So I think that one of the reasons why we're seeing what we're seeing with AI and data coming together is because of this maturing of things, that it stops being brand new and the skills actually get populated out in the wild.
Hmm.
So that commoditize, simplify, and combine all comes together. Um, and so I talk about those parts there. But uh, if you look at people, I know people who have been in the same role. I actually knew one person who was at the same company for 18 years,
Hmm.
and this person uh, it was this person's entire career basically, and one of the problems was the person got let go, and the person wasn't able to return to the job market because they hadn't upskilled, and I think that's an extreme case, and so the person had to switch. They lost their credibility with the market. The tools that they used were so far out there that they become unmarketable. But lesser sense, I think that can happen to all of us, especially when things are going well, right? In the good years where recruiters are calling you on it, like several are calling you every day trying to lure you on to a new project or a new client or whatever. It's easy to say, hey, the gravy train will never end. However, the reality is that things shift, and this is in the last year, things have shifted so that AI, which was used to be a separate thing, is now like, well, let's get someone who does data and AI because that combination is happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And AI, soul of the AI, I would say, has changed. Last time we used to know that AI is advanced analytics. When you talk
Mm-hmm.
about machine learning, when you talk about data science work, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
have never been a big fan of traditional data scientist because I say
Mm-hmm.
it was an overrated role. I used to call them data scientists, data science engineers, because I feel
Mm-hmm.
data scientists are the ones who sit into the universities and research centers who create algos. The traditional data
Mm-hmm.
scientists, which we see in the organizations, are the ones who join pre-created algos and create a model. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
I've been critical for these data scientists, right? But end of the day, AI was picture, a face of advanced analytics of all these algos and this. But now the AI which we are talking about is not that AI actually. It is like how you can talk to an LLM and how LLM can do all this thing at backend. So the
Mm-hmm.
most difficult job out there has become the most easiest job. And you just need a background, a context. You need a brain to just tell this genie whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want. It's a genie with a supreme mind, with low memory
Mm-hmm.
and hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be
Mm-hmm.
very careful. So you need to have a long-term memory yourself. You need
Mm-hmm.
to, you should not have hallucinations. And you
Mm-hmm.
should know what is the context, and then you play with this genie, right? So
Yeah.
what do you say about this shift of AI mindset? I think let's also clear
Mm-hmm.
that for our audience, like what was previous and what was now, what is now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if going down one specific path of all of that is that they talk about, well, AI can do this, and Claude Code can do this, and other tools can do all these wonderful things, which is all true. But I think that to your point is that your because this is all generative, basically it is like a bunch of band members getting together and let's play our instruments and get something that sounds good. And
Yeah.
that's really what these LLMs are doing, right? It's like here's the information, but the point is it sounds that's kind of sort of nebulous out there. But to be more specific, is that you're it's not it is a conversation, but it's a conversation that you are leading with the LLM more than it is a more than you and I. Sorry, it is you and I are talking as say we're talking as both intelligent people uh, who are basically saying, okay, well, we have our opinions that we come in with, whereas the LLM doesn't come in with an opinion necessarily. It
Mhm.
comes in with a whole bunch of information that it's been trained on, and it can be steered in a certain way because you can mention a certain fact and have it go one way, or mention a different fact and have it go another way. So it's not an equal. Which one of the implications of that is that um, when they say anybody, you hear these stories about, oh, I sat down with my son this weekend and I did up a Salesforce application using Claude Code in half an hour. It's sort of like, okay, well, that's but there's a couple things with that. One is that what does that actually mean? How would you actually will you actually be using that in a year? What did you actually do? But the other part is that um, those who are best able to communicate and structure their thoughts, like we do in the data side, are in a better spot than someone who doesn't, right? So you can build an app for everything, and yeah, it can get kind of close, but it can also go off on the wrong path completely because it's been sent off the wrong path by someone who doesn't know. So I'd say, AI within our realm, when it comes to Gen AI, we're in a much better position, or anyone is in a much better position to be in a vibe code position rather than someone who has no concept of anything whatsoever, because your LLM isn't necessarily going to force you to consider stuff that a real professional would, like security, about scalability. You have it do a web page, it'll do a web page. But if you don't ask it to do a web page that uses certain libraries, or do only use vanilla,
Mhm.
or it doesn't, or it is just plain vanilla HTML, or it's to separate the data concern from the separation of concerns. It's not going to do that if you don't know to ask it,
Yeah,
right? So you still need to lead it, right? Which will always be the case because that's the way it works.
absolutely. And when we talk about vibe coding, right, as you correctly mentioned, you need to tell it what to do. And
Yep.
who can tell that? Only those people
Yep.
can tell who has done it before. That is
Right.
where experience, as you mentioned, that we too are intelligent as our minds are. We are talking to each other. We have a context who you are, who I am. We have a
Mm-hmm.
context of our whole experience. I have a context of your experience, right? Your background. You are a Canadian. You are sitting in Doha. Which kind of project you are doing? You're a male. I am a male. All those parameters our brain has, right?
Mm-hmm.
But LLM, when you say LLM knows you and me both, and LLM
Mm-hmm.
knows the whole world.
Right.
Now, when you ask the LLM, it doesn't know which persona
Mm-hmm.
you are talking about, what you
Right.
want to do it, right? So you have to verify.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's jump into this vibe coding as well. I think the evolution of data professional is very much going towards vibe coding. And when we talk about
Mm-hmm.
vibe coding, it is LLM behind it. It is
Mm-hmm.
transformer model behind it, but I heard they're going to change the transformer model with something else. So there you go. They're going to change their foundation. But then, let's see when they change, what will happen. But the thing is,
Let's see.
let's see. But the thing is, right now it is LLM behind vibe coding. Now let's also discuss like what is the right way to use vibe coding. Let me just put an example for you, right? Just to set the stage, what I have done in last two,
Mm-hmm.
3 months, I've been doing a lot of R&D. So I end up thinking one of my friend in he's from UK in Malaysia. He sat with me and I was talking to him. Hey, John, what is this vibe coding, this and that? I've left my coding like 15 years back. So he gave me an example, bro. my wife has created website with vibe coding, and she do not
Hmm.
know anything about IT, which really
Hmm.
pushed me, Mustafa, you can do it. So
Hmm.
I sat back and I started creating a portal which is productionized now, ecardforever.com. So what I'm trying to
Hmm.
say is I created that first version of that product within 2 hours. I was so happy. Wow, very good, all good. But then I started maintaining it. So development is one thing and maintenance is
Hmm.
second thing. And we all know
Hmm.
success of any product is about how you manage the maintenance or slash operations, right? It's not only
Yep.
build it. You can build a car, but it cannot go onto certain place.
Hmm.
You cannot maintain it. You
Oh,
cannot replace the parts. So that's it. So what I'm trying to say is then I end up creating 15 frameworks behind it. UI
hmm.
framework separate, testing framework separate, deployment frameworks separate, design data modeling framework, because I knew that what is the SDLC, what are all the phases, but
Hmm.
not everybody knows.
Right.
That is where I'm
Right.
going. Not everybody knows. And as AI becomes so easy and available to everyone, everyone
Mhm.
want to jump onto it. And now
Right.
everybody is struggling and they are saying, hey, vibe coding is bad. Right. So tell us
Right.
about this, how to use, how data professionals can take advantage of vibe coding.
I think that trying to vibe code something start to finish, and I think that if you break it down into smaller tasks, I think so. First of all, I think the idea of here is a here is this monolithic paragraph that I'm going to write, and I'm going to give you that's not realistic. Okay, for sorry, it is realistic for it to create something,
Hmm.
but because of the details involved, like why do we have business requirements, or user stories, or whatever we want to call that phase where we say, you know, what is our target here? Like, what are we aiming to do here? As long as we, as long as we still need to have those, and those answers are all situationally aware, right? You can't say so. In other words, give me, for example, I want to start my own bank. Do me up a back end and front end application website for banks
Hmm.
so that I can start a bank. Oh, wonderful. Okay. You'll get something for sure. And it'll look pretty impressive at first.
At first.
But as you start to use it, as you start to realize, okay, well, there are actual requirements here that I never told it. So then it's going back, well, how do you change it? So I think that's the wrong way. I think the right way of doing it is to say, okay, I have. It's almost like you need to go for a walk, and that's what I do when I design something complicated. I'll go for a walk and say, okay, I want to build this. I want to build this product, okay, and I'm going to vibe code it. I don't want to code it per se, but first of all, I'm going to come up with the highest level, okay. So I want this part. It's going to have this part, this part, this part from a high level architectural perspective, and that becomes part of my baseline. Then within each of these modules, I'm going to give very, very specific requirements in the form of a prompt, and ideally JSON or something else to give me the structure of the data. Because you still need to, at a certain point in time, you still need to come up with this idea of how you're going to store that information, right? And I don't think that vibe coding is going to give you that at least the first time around.
Hmm.
And there's always going to be that stuff. And so I think that one, break down the problem into smaller pieces, first of all. Second of all, uh, have each of those pieces well defined, which doesn't work really well for a vibe coding event, but it's what's necessary so that you can maintain each of those separate pieces.
Hmm.
And you can always reprompt to say, well, here are the small pieces that I've done. There's a mismatch here. What do I need to do to change? Right. And so I think that having that as the beginning, but still it needs to be architected in a proper way to be maintainable. And vibe coding won't give that to you uh, unless you ask for it. And even then, it'll get it wrong.
Absolutely. And if you, sometime what happens, you ask, excuse me, you ask vibe coding, tell me how it is done. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, vibe coding can tell you the way Einstein thinks or the way a dumbest person can think. Now, the question is
Mhm.
when you are reading what it is telling you, whether you know what is the output. It's something like that. In traditional way, we used to have use cases, then we used to have test cases. So we already knew when we run a test case, this is the output which is in the use case, user
Right,
story. In
right,
other ways, user
right.
stories, right? So you already
Yeah.
knew. So when you for our audience, when you start vibe coding is not about replacing, shutting down all the existing phases or steps. All
Right.
existing steps and phases still remains there, but each
Mhm.
task, each step, each phase needs to have its own agent, which should
Yeah.
do those steps. So end of the day, you
Right.
cannot skip anything. So you
Mhm.
need to do everything. Yes, you might end up having a master agent, but underneath you
Mhm.
need to have all kind of agent, finance, audit, procurement, sales, marketing, developers, all need to be there. Yeah,
Yeah, but you also need very detailed requirements, for lack of a better term.
absolutely.
So going back to my bank vibe coding, okay? So anyone who's dealt with like the financial industry, so banking, financial services, or insurance, I
Hmm.
mean, you have these are highly regulated industries. So you don't come up with a banking app and say I'm going to start my own bank. No, you need like there's so many pieces that need to happen for you to start a bank
Absolutely.
that the banking software isn't the thing that's holding you back. It's all the stuff that goes with it. And I think that just like anything else, say I say, oh, I don't like LinkedIn, I'm going to create my own LinkedIn. Okay, well, whatever. That's a separate thing. But you could do that, but there's a lot involved with that. Or
I
you
tried
want to
that.
replace
By
Salesforce.
the way,
Okay.
I tried that. Yeah,
Um, and so there's always actually me too, but that's a separate conversation. But no, in all seriousness, is that you can say, okay, I'm going to replace this, but oftentimes you have to think holistically beyond the technology, and vibe coding doesn't solve that part. It can help. The Gen AI can help you structure a business case and whatever, but again, it all gets down to details, and those details are not something that you will get because a lot of the details that are required are hidden in people's heads. They're hidden behind walls that the internet can't get to or the training data can't see. So you don't know what is going on there, and therefore vibe coding is whatever. But it's not guaranteed.
absolutely. Now let's go towards like how it is impacting data professional. But when we talk about data professional, there are a
Mhm.
lot of phases, right? Data professional
Yep.
is also about which kind of products you have. In data professional, DBAs are there, database administrators. Database
Mhm.
designers are there, data modelers are there, ETL developers are there,
Mhm.
testers are there, even business
Yep.
analysts are there, data stewards are there. There are many roles actually, right? Data
Mhm.
scientists are there, data scientist
Yep.
engineer, as I say. So
Mhm.
tell us about how this AI slash vibe coding
Mhm.
slash LLM is impacting in
Mhm.
all these roles.
Mm, mm. Okay, well, that's a very good question. So if we talk about, um, like if we say, I think a very, very good one is, so with the way that coding works now is that you've got a repository, is CI/CD pipelines,
Mm,
you have a pull request, and then somebody in a mature enterprise environment is going to be reviewing these pull requests and approving them or denying them or asking questions, right? And so I know an individual that I worked with. Um, he had his own job to do, but he also had something else that he also had to approve change requests.
mm,
Well, he supports 5 different teams, right? And so he was spending most of his time actually working on the pull requests and not on his own job,
mm,
right? Um, and so you say, well, it doesn't take that long to do blah, 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 blah. Well, if you've got 5 teams that you're supporting, say that's 15 data engineers with their pull requests on projects that are releasing every 2 weeks, right? Or making changes constantly. He was spending probably 80% of his time on the role, that part of his role, when it should have been like 20% of his time. And so what he did was he said, okay, um, he said, okay, here is what I look. Here are my standards for what I look for in a code review, right? So he found a way of uh, sorry, automating a lot of the checks. So he says, he put together, here's a list of what I look for. Here's a list of what I think is important, what I think is not important. I want you to look at these pull requests and give me a sense of what is high risk, what is low risk, right? What is a big change, what's a small change here?
Mm.
And so at first, his first step was to look at everything and say, okay, I'm going to look at 100% of all these things. And then he realized that for the low impact ones, he didn't need to look at because whatever. And he just would say, okay, auto approve those, right? So if it's something is a spelling mistake or whatever. And so he sent that to an LLM to get or an agent that
Excellent.
get the pull requests and just automatically approve certain ones. Other ones where there was like, okay, don't know. He would have like, what's the pros and cons here? He did it up so that basically he was able to take his like that 80% of his role that really wasn't his to begin with and bring it down to that 20%, and actually even lower than that, just because there was so much stuff that he never had to deal with. So I think AI, ML, LLMs really help there. Um, Another part is that if we talk about BI report developers, right? A lot of the reports that we've developed over the years have all been on structural data, whereas now with the prevalence of much more AI ML out there, is that even without Gen AI into the mix, is
Mm.
that there's so many areas where, for example, sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
We look at classification problems, customer verbatims. So when we look at areas where we there was a whole area that we never could touch because of unstructured data. You run those through a proper ML model, and it'll give you the sentiment. It'll give you the themes behind stuff. It is a wonderful way of taking unstructured data and making it structured and doing stuff with that, including reporting on it. So I've seen that, and that is another great example of how it's being used properly, right? And how it impacts the work. Another part is uh, with team management. So, for example, you get 10 experts in a room, you're going to get 10 different opinions. Okay, one thing you can do is when I've had to referee a couple managers and say, okay, well, I'm not an expert in this. I say, okay, you guys give me your side. All right, I'm going to feed it into an LLM. Get
Mm.
the LLM to provide what is their critique of it and why, right? And then we use that as a discussion back to gain consensus. So I've got two managers that don't agree, and I can't add if it's an area where I can't add value because I don't have the context or whatever. I'll still put in my 2 cents, but to be complete, put that in and say, okay, have we thought about this? And so what are the assumptions here? So it's a tool for say conflict resolution, and also and a lot of stuff with our documentation. Where do we documentation that we do up? If I'm a user who's using this system, what other questions may I have that my documentation doesn't answer? Right. And so those are examples of ways that we as data professionals just in our regular tasks
Mm.
can use them, right? So it's in our best interest in a lot of ways. And I think that there's always these people like, well, AI could take our jobs. And I'd say, well, if AI could take our jobs, I mean, yes, there's gonna be some displacement for sure, but I think that between AI displacing somebody who has never built anything and displacing someone who has built something, right? I think it's going to displace the person who's never done it before, not the one who has. Because again, it's you always need that human in the loop to be making these quality assessments because LLM can't do it on their own.
Yeah, and I'm also not a big fan of this mindset that jobs are going away. For me, jobs are not going away. The only thing is jobs are going to optimize, is going to speed up. Now, you never had the budget of hiring 1,000 people. Now you can have 1,000 agents. Now the question
Hmm.
comes, you had 100 employees. Now you can do
Hmm.
the same job with 10 employees to do that 100 job. The thing is,
Right.
one company will downsize it, but there will always be smart minds out there. They will
Hmm.
not offload those 90 people. They will
Hmm.
train them, and rather than doing 100 people, 100 job, rather
Yep.
than reducing to 10 people to do 100 job, what they will do, they will use 100 people to do 1,000 jobs.
Right.
So
That's.
they will do it, and that will bring a competition. There will
Hmm.
always be 5 to 10% people or top management of organization who will follow this right approach. The moment that
Hmm.
happens, the all rest of the world who were downsizing, they
Hmm.
became Kodak and Nokia. So now they have to
Hmm.
rush into it because
Hmm.
last time everyone has $1 million, revenue a year, but suddenly there are five
Hmm.
companies who suddenly jump from 1 million to 10 million. Hey, we also want to do that. So jobs are
Right.
not going away for sure, because when nowadays we are asking people to jump onto the AI LLM world, people are still
Hmm.
scared, but which is
Hmm.
understandable, because today if you go and
Yep.
ask someone do it, they say, hey, MIT says 98% project fails. Why the hell I should go into AI, right? What
Hmm.
what's your say about that perspective which is flowing into
Yeah.
the market?
Yeah, great, great. So first of all, the 98% of projects that are failing are being done by people who I think a lot of people haven't been successful in projects that are not AI. I think that's part of it. Another part is that um, well, first of all, I would say that we as a society do need to seriously think about what happens when there are certain jobs that will go away, right? There are certain jobs where, I think a great example is a call center, right? How many times have you called a call center and you've been so frustrated with the process? I mean, I know for myself, I remember being on the phone with a utility for 3 hours, and I was being pushed from one department to another. And I'm like, why am I doing your jobs for you? Right.
Hmm.
And so as soon as I think a lot of us, when we look at that moment where it's like, oh, AI can help, do this, a lot of us, at least with me, I'm like, okay, good, now I don't have to spend 3 hours on the phone trying to explain between three departments what has gone wrong with my billing, and how I am telling them how to fix the problem, right? So that's where a lot of the stuff comes in, and I think that will reduce jobs. And I think as society we need to look at, one, what happens to those displaced people, right? Because you can't just say, well, it's not our problem, because every dollar that somebody spends in an economy, as an economist, sorry, as someone who took economics in school, there's this multiplier effect. When I spend $1 on something, a part of that gets saved, and then a part of that gets respent. So $1 over the economy gets put 10. So if you're letting go of a lot of people, which is happening right now, that affects the economy, right? Whereas individual companies, it's not in their best interest to keep people around for the economy. It's their business survival. So I think that to be fair, society has to look at that. Two, right now is a lot of people who are graduating our school are not finding jobs because their their skill level is their perceived skill level is lower than what vibe coding could do or what AI could do, and therefore they're having problems. And I think that not to put that aside is that these are serious issues we need to look at. That being said, is that first of all, uh, AI projects often fail because they don't know what they're trying to accomplish. Like if you go back through history, look at websites. When websites became all the rage, everyone needed a website. What should that website say? Who knows? But it should have a spinning, flaming logo,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't have a spinning, flaming logo, or it doesn't have this or it doesn't have that, your company is considered bad. And just like that, and big data and cloud technologies, all these things that you better be on the bandwagon, that fear of missing out, AI's become that. And so the people who are failing these projects aren't thinking about where do I take AI, which makes sense where it is right now, and apply it to my business,
Hmm.
right? They're thinking about we need AI and just make AI happen so we can get rid of people, or we have competitive advantage. So that I think that it's possible to do it right, but it has to come from the right spot, which is me taking what are my business needs, what are my pain points, and solving for those using AI where I can't do it any other way, rather than I'm going to put AI in here so that I can say I used AI and that we're an AI first company.
Yeah, yeah. That's bring a more critical question here, which I wanted to ask is
Mhm.
we just discussed that how it is impacting the developer world of executor world of data professionals. But it is
Mhm.
also having its impact at the top management, where their
Yes.
expectations has changed,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And somehow product companies or XYZ has sold that to the top management. Hey, you can
Mhm.
use AI and you can do a lot of stuff. And we all know
Mhm.
that AI for a new person is very good for a beginner. You know, it's a beginner's luck. When you use AI
Mhm.
for the first time, it's so cool, right? And
Mhm.
how many time management use it? One time, two times?
Mhm.
And it is
Right.
super cool for them. And then they say, hey, go and do it. So how do you
Mhm.
see management mindset evolving into this market?
Right. That's very good because one of the parts that affects senior data professionals is that in your senior data roles, they're now looking for AI credentials, right?
Hmm.
Very, very deep AI credentials and not at a, like, I'm a high level transformation, I'm a leader in this, blah, 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 or whatever. They want to know that you have specific experiences hands on with this technology. Whereas, in like data leaders now, if let's exclude AI, in the world of data without AI, you don't have executive leaders who you don't have executives who are saying you need to know how to architect a database,
Hmm.
right? You need to know how to ETL a pipeline of 12 petabytes an hour. These kind of ridiculous off things. No one's asking you to be that technical, right? Nowhere. However, with AI, they're asking data professionals and others as well to be that person um, who is all knowing when it comes to AI and deep hands-on experience in areas that are just would never an area would never go to, because as you mentioned with the data science people, for a lot of us in the data world and analytics, data science was something that is it felt kind of it felt a little bit like fortune telling, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't have good data, but here's the model, and 70% of the time it predicts things accurately. Okay, so we're going to have this machine learning model help a doctor who will make the correct call during a surgery 70% of the time. Sounds good.
And
Anyway,
25% you kill people.
yeah, that's but only 25%, and it's getting better.
Yeah, that's
I,
that's that's how it's being
getting
sold.
better.
You see,
But
75%, and they don't talk about 25%, right? Okay.
no, no,
So
no. That's exactly.
yeah. So now, how about this things towards architecture, because architecture is also a very key thing, right? Because now every product have AI. I was so
Yes.
surprised the other day. Actually, I last time I stopped using Google like a year back and a half year back.
Hmm.
I never
Hmm.
touched Google.
Hmm.
Suddenly the other day, I was doing something on chat GPT and it was processing. I
Hmm.
wanted to ask something simple on Google and I went over there and I asked. And suddenly I
Right.
see there's a AI, what they call it? AI, google.com. Right. Okay, they have this AI mode.
Yep.
I
Yes.
went into this AI mode and I started asking questions, and it was so
Hmm.
cool actually.
Yeah.
And it
Yep.
behaved just like any other, like Claude or like
Mhm.
Cursor. It was super cool. It was keeping the memory, and it was
Yep.
not even as difficult as chat GPT that you have to maintain this, blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to say is every
Mhm.
product have AI, LLM embed underneath, right?
Yep.
So now the question comes architecture because I am architecture, right? We have last
Right.
15 minutes. I really want to discuss architecture because architecture
Mhm.
is something you cannot rely on a robot or an agent
Mhm.
to build you an
Mhm.
architecture of a bridge.
Right.
Even though,
Correct.
even though it might be the super best bridge architecture in the whole history, but you
Mhm.
will not let it go into production without human verifying, validating it, right? Because it is
Right.
impacting,
Correct.
right? Same goes
Mhm.
with if you're building a solution architecture, you have Google
Mhm.
Cloud, you have Azure Cloud, you have AWS, the famous, these three famous, and then you have so many niche
Mhm.
products in the market. You ask AI, which is
Mhm.
LLM slash, hey, build me an architecture
Mhm.
which is best suited. It'll go and create anything, right? Because you said best.
Yep.
And best for it, nobody knows
Right.
what is the best for it, right?
Right.
Only it knows. So how it is
Right.
impacting these
Right. So it decides that. Yeah, that's the very good. I think that the nature of generative AI is that it's if you think about it, and this is just for anyone that's used, Gen AI, is to say that that its thing is it repeats back what you asked it, right? It does some work, creates something, and then it brags about what a great job it did for you,
Hmm.
right? So it'll say so create me an architecture here, blah 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 blah, and then it'll do that, and it's very proud of its work and says, oh, I did this, and it with certain ones it'll ask you questions and stuff like that, but it doesn't necessarily know which questions to ask. So I think that an architect I think that if anything in the ideation process, I think that Gen AI, and the more models, the better you throw something at.
Hmm.
Here's an issue. Try to look at that, and then through there's this we learned in school, business school, something called the Delphi method, where you have a bunch of experts in a room, you give them a problem, get their opinions, and
Hmm.
then replay the opinions back. And what you will see is people will start to say, well, that's based on this, and oh, well, can we get an answer to that? So there's this it's a form of consensus building by using objective experts to come to a conclusion. I think you can get something much closer with that, but you still need to have at least one human expert in the room. So to put it another way, is that you can draft 20,000 different versions of architecture with the help of Gen AI, but
Yeah.
that final design has to be steered by a human who ideally who has subject matter knowledge
Yeah.
of the specific instances where this architecture is going to be used, right? Not generic of what's being used elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. When you say one human, actually, I am more towards for every role, there has to be one human because you cannot, because
Mm-hmm.
if you miss one role to a, like we used to say that in agentic AI, you need to just give it a goal. Giving a goal
Mm-hmm.
is very different. You say, save that person. And agents
Mm-hmm.
can think save that person means kill everybody else. That can also be a goal,
Right,
right?
right.
Right?
That's true. That's true. I think.
Long time back, 25 years back, when I was doing a basic training, a very good trainer was there. He said, you will tell the computer that crow is a bird. So it will say, yeah, crow
Mm-hmm.
is a bird, but every other bird is not a bird, right?
Right,
For, and if you say
right.
crow is not a bird, then it is everything
Mm-hmm.
else. So, so all
Right.
guardrails, policies,
Mm-hmm.
principles, personas, all those need to be there along with the goal. What is your goal? What is your context?
Right.
And context keep changing.
Mm-hmm.
Context keep
Right.
maturing with every iteration, right? And AI do
Yes.
not have a
Yep.
long-term memory. We all know that. Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
I think it's a great discussion because people are really I'm meeting a lot of people, especially I'm meeting nowadays a lot of kids from colleges and universities, they are connected with me in few communities, right? They've been asking
Mhm.
me that, hey, AIs are taking jobs, how we
Mhm.
survive. So
Right.
I'm telling them, go towards basics,
Mhm.
understand what data is,
Right.
understand what is data, understand what is metadata, what is
Mhm.
privacy security, what is lineage, right?
Mhm.
What is governance? Within governance, what all those catalogs, you name it, all these basics
Mhm.
you need to
Mhm.
understand. Like if you go
Yep.
into a car, if you drive a car and
Mhm.
sitting on a seat is a very basic thing that you have to sit on a seat to drive, because if you don't sit, you can't
Mhm.
drive. So
Mhm.
a steering, there's a clutch, there's a brake, there's an accelerator. These are, if you
Mhm.
go to a racer or a professional driver, they will never even discuss what is a clutch or what is an accelerator, right? Because it's
Right.
a
Right.
given thing for them. But when some
Right. Right.
yeah, when someone use AI, they need to know all this. So I keep telling these students and freshers,
Mhm.
go and fix your basics, learn basics first, and
Mhm.
then jump onto AI. So you should know that what AI is expecting from you. As I always say, it's a genie, right? So what do you think?
Mhm.
What's your thought on that? Who are just starting their journey? Because nowadays iPhone or touch screen is
Mhm.
nothing for a kid, for Gen Z world, right?
Right.
Because they are
Right.
born with it. We are the people
Mhm.
who know what was the dialer internet, right? It was
Mhm.
used to connect dial up,
Yep.
right? They
Yeah.
don't know
It's
this.
rotary phones. They're called rotary phones. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Exactly.
those ones, right? So now these
Yep.
new kids which are just entering in this world, vibe coding is something like a touch screen for a Gen Z, right? They think
Yep.
this is correct. What's your advice for
Mhm.
them?
Yeah. Thank you. Great question. So yeah, you're right in terms of you got to focus on basics. So this is if I think that your analogy, because I always try to use like non-technical analogies here, is that you got a you got a kid who is really good at a certain sport, right? Football or hockey or baseball or whatever, and they're saying, I'm going to become a star. I'm going to become a star. I think a lot of the the people, but sorry, going back to just taking that further, is that as a parent to someone who's like that, who says, "Oh, I'm going to play I'm going to play football for the rest of my life and be a professional football player." It's like, okay, well, you need something beyond that, right? So that can't be your whole thing, right? Same thing when it comes to Gen Z or Gen Z with their career, is that yes, AI is going to be a part of it, but you still need to have something to fall back on, something else that you bring to the table. Because if the only thing you have with they talk when they talk about startups, they say, what is your moat? What is that thing that gives you a competitive advantage? And your thing that gives you a competitive advantage cannot be, I know AI better than other people know AI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your competitive advantage comes from subject matter expert mastery of something outside of AI, and then applying AI as the magic behind it. So before you get the wand, using a Harry Potter example, I guess, is that you need to understand the spells, right?
Yeah,
What is that? So before you have that magical power, you have to understand the spells and how you use them and how you don't use them. So that's that you figure out what I would say, figure out what you're passionate about. What are you passionate about in this world, regardless of technology, right? What is it makes you get up in the morning that's going to pay you to survive? And then focus on getting those skills.
yeah.
Um, you will get the AI skills anyway. You'll have the computer skills anyway at this point, just
Yeah.
naturally living life, right? But focus on where you want to make a difference that is going to pay you to live enough to live on, and that you can later apply AI so that you find your own little space, because everybody lining up at the AI wheelhouse won't get you anywhere. And say that you'll somehow magically AI your way through a problem, right? It's like in Seinfeld, yada yada your way through a problem. You can't yada yada your way through that. Uh, again, focus on fundamentals, focus on how you're going to add value, what career will take you there, and then and only then how you can use AI as being a competitive advantage better than others. That would be my advice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because AI is nobody can run away this new era of AI. You will learn
Yeah,
or people will make you learn to do their jobs. And only those
right.
will be selected because when I nowadays take an interviews, my focus is not more on AI because I know
Yeah.
this new AI world, learning this new AI is super easy. You just need to tell them how to do prompting. That's all. How to create a skill, how to
Mm-hmm.
create an agent, how to write a good prompt. That's it. It's a half an
Mm-hmm.
hour training. Now the thing is,
Right.
when they write a prompt, what to ask. So that is where
Mm-hmm.
80% my interviews are on basics. Do they really understand what is a data warehouse? What is semantic
Mm-hmm.
layer? Why the hell
Mm-hmm.
we need staging area? Why we really
Right.
need landing area, right? Why we need
Mm-hmm.
certain data modeling techniques, like why we need Bell and Moon techniques, why we need
Mm-hmm.
Kimball, why we need Vault,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all these basics, you need centralized approach, decentralized approach, you need a data match, you need a DAS, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
my emphasis is, do you have your background, right? So I'm looking towards that blood who actually this is about passion as well, right? The people who
Oh
do
yeah.
focus on the foundations, I know
Mm-hmm.
once they come in our organization, they will not focus on the foundation, right? And you
Right.
need people who stick with the organization strategy rather than tools strategy, right? So, so,
Mm-hmm.
so now we have only, I think, 8 to 10 minutes left. Tell
Yeah.
us about this learning curve. I think this is when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about this evolution of data professional, I think learning
Yes.
curve is also key, right? Because a lot of
Yes.
people do not like change. A
Oh
lot of
yes. Oh
people are,
yes.
first of all, a lot of people are scared of the change. Secondly,
Mm-hmm.
they don't like to be changed, right? So what's
Right.
your take on it?
I think that there's a lot of reasons for it. And actually, if you go back and watch the first podcast, that's
Mm,
what was the, how, it was, I asked like, why is there such resistance towards it? Why should we care and what could be done about it? Right. And in short, I mean, there's a lot of good reasons as to why data professionals, they've heard so much crap about it. Right. And beyond, in a lot of places, they don't see how it applies to them and stuff like that. But I think that most relevant right now from what I'm seeing in the job market is that even beyond Gen AI is that a lot of data roles at the intermediate, senior, or executive level, they're all asking for something AI ML related, and or high level detailed LLM. So your half hour course on prompting isn't going to get you through that. This is when I say LLM, it's that have you deployed an LLM on locally on your machine? Have you tuned it? Blah 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 blah. These are things that you have to study for, right? But the other part is that as someone who was looking at a lot of uh, um, job postings is that there's all these things. So I've never done any of that. I think that there's this keyword fear, right? And the keyword fear is you hear like Spark, like, oh, I've never used Spark. It must be difficult. Well, you start learning about it. It's, oh, it's not that bad. Then you
yeah.
get onto another stuff. And the other part that I think is very, very important is that for those that are looking to upskill right now, there's so much competition with the different AI ML vendors, so AWS, Microsoft with Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, they all have amazing free training in a lot of areas, or very, very cheap training that they provide. And at the end of it, you get a certification. And those are the things that are going to set you apart. And it's not that hard. Like these are, we already know like 80% of what's there just happenstantially by being where we are.
Yeah.
right? So I said in the first podcast, 80 to 90% of AI is actually data. So we're already 80, 90% the way there. And I think that the 10 or 20% that we're lacking is only because we have this keyword fear, right? And yeah, there's new pieces, but we're not talking about thousands of hours to get you up to speed, right? Maybe it's 100, maybe it's a couple hundred hours, but it's something you can do in your spare time. And even I think making the attempt shows, or even starting at a high level and slowly working your way down into the details, or just the details that you actually care about for the jobs that you're looking for, goes a long way in terms of bridging that gap.
Yeah, so as you just mentioned, right, 80 to 90% off and 20%, that is how it all works, right? You remember last time data scientists used to be very proudly says, hey, our 80% job is data engineering job. We
Mm-hmm.
have to clean
Mm-hmm.
data, we have to create feature stores. And I used to
Mm-hmm.
argue with them. I said, that is not your job. Your
Right.
job is that 20%. This 80%
Mm-hmm.
feature engineering is not your job, it's a data engineer's job, right? So now suddenly that 80% is totally gone. And
Right.
actually that 20% is also gone because now you can create an agent and you say, go
Mm-hmm.
and create me the most optimized model.
Mm-hmm.
It'll automatically go and find the most relevant algos in the world and it'll create a model for you. For me, this data
Mm-hmm.
scientist job is already gone. So how do you see this trend in the market about data scientists to be very specific?
That's a very good question. I think there still is a very big market for them, and the reason why I say that is that the I said that it's not just the model itself, but you if you say, give me the best model for this, so I'll give you an example. I was on a project, leading a data science team, and we created something. The business said this is what we want. I said okay. The data science team, very very effective, very very efficient. They came back and they did what was asked, and it didn't take that long, right? But they said, you know what, uh, you know, based on just some of the stuff that they heard regarding this, they said, have a bit of concern regarding the usefulness of this information because of this, this, and this. And this is something that Gen AI would never volunteer because they're not in the room for those conversations,
Yeah,
right? So so if you tell Gen AI will base the solution on based on what you tell it.
yeah.
But if you have Gen AI, you don't you data scientists can go further and say, this is what you've told me to do, but knowing the larger part that you haven't said as part of this requirement, but we know that is coming in a larger sense that you never would have told Gen AI, your solution actually should look much different, and here's how it should look. And that's where I see the value for data science being going forward. Not just the models, not just the tuning, the choice
Absolutely.
of models.
See, whatever you just explained, I think that is what real data scientist job is. And I'm absolutely with you. Their scope will be now. I felt that is what they should have been doing in last 2 decades. But they have been, for me, they have been, as I mentioned, 80% thing they have been doing engineering work. Now engineering work is auto already. Now they have to be real data scientists, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
ask Gen AI, whatever they produce, they tell Gen AI, no, we don't want, we need this, we need that. This is the best, this is the this is the scoring rate, and this is the best practices. This someone has done this, someone has done this. So that is what
Mm-hmm.
our data scientists should be doing, right? And
Yes.
see,
Yeah.
when I say data scientist jobs are gone, let me rephrase
Mm-hmm.
it. Data scientist
Yeah.
engineer jobs are gone, which I used to
Right.
call data science engineers.
It's,
That is
but
gone.
you is right, and that is this is how the roles evolve over time. So it begs the question, with everything going on, what will maybe this is too far looking in the future, is that 10 years from now, what will data engineers, data scientists, report developers, how will that all look?
No, no, I am absolutely with you. The more stronger your data foundation will become,
Hmm.
the more stronger your context understanding will become,
Hmm.
the lesser developers you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to understand the ecosystem. Every
Hmm.
time you talk to Gen AI, you need to have personas in it that, hey,
Hmm.
I am this, you treat yourself as this. That's a persona definition.
Yeah.
This is you do based on
Hmm.
these guardrails and based on this context. Every
Hmm.
prompt need to have these. The more you learn this, the
Hmm.
more better I would say consultant you become. So I think it was a great session. We are already around
Yes.
60 minutes there. So let's wind
Okay.
it up. How you want to close?
Yes.
Because we can talk day and night on this one, you and
I
me.
know. I know. I think we got to do this more often, even if it's not broadcast. But no, I think that I'd say that I always like to end on a message of hope. Is that even for myself, I think that it doesn't. I think we talk about we always talk about numbers like, oh, I've got over 25 years of this and this. But the reality is that the market pays based on what you can do for a client. Your
Yeah.
people, you are hired based on the value that you provide, not based on your pedigree, right? So you don't walk into a business, say, here's my resume, and then they say, let me write you a big check and start working right away. It's not about what you've done. It's about what you can do for me as your employer. And I
Hmm.
think that we as data engineers or data professionals in general all over the place by espousing AI and making that part of our jobs and getting up to speed and being able to demonstrate credentials with these, which is not a difficult task, by the way. Even if it's a couple hours here and there, it's hard, but I think it puts you in a much better position to get the plum jobs out there. And I'm seeing a lot of really, really good jobs out there that for are just right above where your data professionals, normal data professionals have, but with a little bit of upskilling, they could be in a position where yeah, they're it goes from them not being wanted at all to them being like contacted simultaneously by multiple recruiters with multiple offers. That's my belief. Although I know that the job market is actually terrible, but there is a lot of demand for AI with data right now. So that's would be my advice.
Yeah, awesome. I
Right.
think just to close it out as you're talking about job market, I think job
Mhm.
market is heavy for AI, but new AI, which is
Yeah.
LLM world, and people are
Mhm.
still not ready to pay, I would say. So 95% jobs are not very high pay jobs. 5%
Mhm.
are just there with a higher pay. So that's
Yeah.
where I think I see a lot of people are struggling, uh, that they want to come into it, but I think this our corporate world are readjusting their whole ecosystem, how to
Mhm.
adjust into this new era of AI. Okay, I think we are good. Tom, it was a great session, pleasure,
As always, thank
and
you.
we can always have more sessions on it.
It's
So
wonderful. It's
yeah, so we
wonderful.
can always catch up. We can always catch up. We
Yeah.
can always fill in podcast or non-podcast. We can bounce the ideas, and I will keep
Mhm.
bouncing the ideas with you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Would
much.
love that.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being part of this
Thank you.
series.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.